So, sitting here on the steps of the house that belonged to ironmaster Moses Thompson, who lived here from 1842 to 1891 with his family, and who died in this very home. Moses Thompson, who was one of the founders of Penn State. He and his partner offered an initial 200 acres for building the campus of Penn State right here up the hill. I want to think about the values that Moses Thompson had in building this house, the values of he and the other ironmasters who oversaw the smelting of iron and the sale of this pig iron to other parts of the state that built this Commonwealth. I want to think about the values of those who came after him and who built Penn State and who took this land and put it to other uses, and the values of those who came before him, who may have seen this land in a very different way. We don't know a great deal about the Susquehannock peoples, although we do know that they lived here for many generations before the arrival of European settlers. When the stack was built in 1791, the foundations for this house were also laid. At that point, this land had just been surveyed, and the Revolutionary War veterans who bought the original parcels bought them from a surveyor who was the first to survey this land. What does that mean, to take land that had never before been bought or sold, to split it up into parcels, to sell it, and to turn it to a different use? Did the land have no use before then, or a different use? Was it only productive once the ironmasters started cutting down the trees and turning them to charcoal, and then using that to power the iron furnace? Or did it have a different kind of productivity? Who counts in thinking about these values? Is it just the human beings, either the natives who lived here or the settlers? Or do animals also count? Should we also think about the ways that they lived in this land and the uses that they put to this land? Do trees count? And can anybody speak for the trees? You may know that Pennsylvania is known as Penn's Woods. That's literally what it means. And that it was virtually all cut down. All of the woods and forests that were here originally before the Europeans arrived were cut down, much of it to be turned into charcoal. Charcoal that, among other things, fed these iron furnaces. What difference does that make? How do you view the land? The very fact that the trees here are so young tells us about their history. If you go to Cook Forest State Park in Pennsylvania, you'll see what an original forest used to look like, what all this land used to look like, with these ancient trees, 300, 400, some even 500 years old, filling up the land in a way that made it impossible to undertake agriculture. So the clearing of the land is necessary for making charcoal, and also necessary for planting wheat and other crops that then you sell to markets to the east and to the west of you. So that idea of land being productive, for it serving a purpose, is a very different concept than the land having its own purpose. I think about these things not in a way to make us judgmental about the past or about the present, but to think about how values are intimately caught up with what we think is right and wrong, what we think a person should and should not do, and to think about where those values come from, how they tie into other values and other things that we think are important. So again, Moses Thompson and his family built this house, surveyed this land, created wealth, contacted the governor, offered some of the land that was used for the furnace to the state for the building of Penn State. When the area was being considered, Moses Thompson's wife threw a huge party. So hospitality, usefulness, education, the betterment of society, these are all some of the values that Moses Thompson and his family held dear. So write down a few of the values. Imagine what it was like to live here before then. Then think about the connection between those values and your values. Are they the same or different? And why?